She was in my college.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
College judge.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome, awesome. My name is Nicholas Smith, and I'm the president of the Black Law Student Association here at Notre Dame. We are going to turn that music off. Yes, we are. So, tonight we have the privilege of witnessing a truly special conversation, one that bridges generations, leadership, and the enduring impact of BLSA at Notre Dame. This fireside chat brings together Kevin Warren, Notre Dame Law School class of 1990, and his daughter, Peri Warren, Notre Dame Law School class of 2026, in this intimate discussion about legacy, leadership, and the power of resilience. Kevin Warren has built an awe-inspiring career in sports leadership, shattering barriers as the first Black Chief Operations Officer in the NFL with the Minnesota Vikings, and later making history as the first Black commissioner of a Power 5 conference with the Big Ten. Today, he serves as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Chicago Bears, bringing visionary leadership to one of the most storied franchises in NFL history. Beyond his professional achievements, Kevin and his family are deeply committed to philanthropy, investing in education, pediatric cancer support, and empowering young people through the Warren Family Foundation. Following in his footsteps, Peri Warren is forging her own path at Notre Dame Law School and is currently a second-year law student and vice president of BLSA. Clap it up for that, please. With a background in brand strategy, sports, and entertainment, she's passionate about intellectual property law and its role in shaping creative industries. This summer, she will join the NBA's IP group, working on brand protection, licensing, and innovation. As the founder of Pivot, a brand consultancy, Peri is dedicated to safeguarding Black creative contributions and helping brands navigate cultural and commercial landscapes. Tonight's conversation is more than just a discussion about law and leadership. It is a testament to the legacy of Black excellence at Notre Dame, the power of mentorship, and the importance of paving the way for future generations. Please join me in welcoming Kevin and Peri Warren.
Thank you, Nick, our wonderful and illustrious BLSA president. These events wouldn't be possible with leaders like him and all the support of our e-board. So thank you all for being here, a part of this event and this entire weekend. Thank you, Dad. It's good to see you here.
Good to see you too.
So first things first, just how does it feel to be back, walking the halls? I don't even know if they had the courtroom when you were here, but how does it feel? No, I really don't think they have it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's always good to be back. They didn't. I'm sorry. I'm just really. I'm just so grateful. Just grateful to Notre Dame and to be here with Peri and seeing people like Dwight and Mary. I appreciate you all. I'm good. I'm okay back home. I'm seriously, I'm okay. I just want to thank. My first year in law school was '87, and I think Dwight, you came in '86, and he really looked out for us, because it was hard. I'm not saying it's not hard now, but it was really hard. School was hard. Didn't have a lot of resources. Didn't have family money, and what you did for me and my nephew Morrison, who's a lawyer. I'm forever grateful. And Mary, thank you. And also thank Dean Link. What your dad did for us. They used to have I promise I won't digress much, but they used to have at Notre Dame, his father, Dean Link, could 10% of the class he could admit who they deemed unqualified. And I was one of those. And then my nephew was one. So just thank you, and Dwight and Mary. Thank you. I love this university. So when you ask what it feels like to be back on campus, I think you can see and know this courtroom was not here. I've spoken in here before. We were in the, I don't call it the old courtroom, because when you get my age, it's you don't use the word old. I call it the original courtroom.
Right.
Yeah, so it's good to be back on campus.
Yeah, that's very well, like you referenced, that law school is not only academically rigorous and challenging, but a lot personally challenging as well. Just really find out more about yourself, go to the depths of the depths, just having to rise to the occasion. Could you talk a little bit about, you talked about the resources, but a little bit more about what you had to overcome tangibly as a kid from Phoenix, as well as what got you through, what pulled you through some of those tough times?
And my law school experience was probably different than most people. You know, I came here just with a kind of different flight plan. I was a student athlete, undergraduate, graduated from Grand Canyon University. They were just playing against Maryland now. But I started my college basketball career at the University of Pennsylvania. Then I transferred to Grand Canyon, is where I graduated. Then I did my MBA at Arizona State, and I had been admitted to their dual program, MBA JD. And then I had a sister who lived in South Bend who became ill, and she needed help. And I was the one in the family. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. So I came here. So I had a different flight plan when I came to Notre Dame. Not only was I caring for my sister and my niece and nephew, who were, I think, 2 and 5 at the time, but then I was here in law school. And that's why I get really emotional. These aren't like sad tears. These are, you know, happy tears. But I remember when we started, I think there were 6 Black students in our class. And I think 3 graduated. And it was a grind. But, you know, it was, here's my nephew right here, just talking about Morrison right here. Here's Dwight King right here, Mary. Is that crazy? So, you know, my first year was here. I was here alone with my sister and her kids and her husband, John Shoemate, who was a great basketball player who unfortunately just passed. And then I recruited Morrison, who came the second year. So he was a year behind me. But you know, school was hard, but people supported you. They did everything that they possibly could. But best thing about it, we got a phenomenal education.
Yeah, seeing Morrison, I'm sure that brought up back a lot of memories. So what's something that was may surprise me about your law school experience, whether that's a funny story or just an unforgettable time when you look back?
I would say, well, I think one funny thing is, you know, Morrison and I worked. I mean, we worked all through college. We worked all through grad school, and we worked all through law school. So I had a summer job before I started law school. And then what we would do is that we would work like over Christmas, and that would be the money that would carry us for second semester. And then we would work in the summer. That'd be the money that carry us in the fall. Then we work over Christmas, and so we were. It was really a pay as you go. So probably the funniest story. It wasn't funny then, but when when I graduated, I don't know if Mo felt in that category, but when I graduated, we had graduation at the Grotto, and I got my diploma, and I was so excited. And I remember it came in like a little tube that was rolled, and so put it in my place where I lived, packed it up, and then I moved to Kansas City, I think one day after graduation, because I think we graduated on Saturday. I left on Sunday. I started work on Monday. And so I said, I'm gonna get this thing hung up. I'm gonna take it to a local framer, get it hung up, put it on my wall. You see all these lawyers have all this. And I opened it up to when I got to the framer, and it said, please call the bursar's office. Because you have an outstanding balance that you owe. I was like, what? Had a little sticker that said, congratulations, please call the bursar's office, and we'll send you your degree when you pay your bill. So I rolled it back up and told the guy, I don't need this frame right now. I'll be back in a couple months. should have framed it, and I frame everything, but I remember it took me a couple months to pay the remaining bill, and in Notre Dame fashion, literally the day that I paid it, and that's when people wrote checks and used the mail. I remember the day that I paid it. About a week later, I was so ecstatic because it came in the mail. It came into my diploma, so I do have that frame now. It's in storage somewhere in Chicago, but I do have it. Frame. So that was an interesting story. So good thing I didn't open it up at dinner and say, look at my
that would have
diploma.
been not good. So when you think back, how far you came, so literally from that day to being an agent, paving your own way, to first Black Commissioner of the Big Ten, and now where you're at now, what comes to mind just looking back over your journey, and specifically, how has the law kind of been how has it been a bolster to your day-to-day, or just what's been the common thread with the law?
And I think one of my superpowers is the ability to recruit people and be convincing. And it took all that I could to get Peri Warren to go to law school. So thank you for agreeing to go to law school. And then once I got her to commit to law school, then I went to work for her to come to Notre Dame. She was visiting USC and NYU, all these places. I was like,
I think you called them and told them not to accept it.
But you know, the law is a great degree, and I know we're from South Phoenix. We grew up in a really challenging area in South Phoenix, probably till I was 10 years old. Marcia was a little bit younger than we moved to Tempe, but I didn't know a lawyer growing up, and I knew, I guess, one lawyer, Judge Cecil Patterson, who was a district court judge. He was a judge, but he was a lawyer. But we didn't know any lawyers in our community. And we had a couple individuals in our family who went to law school and ended up not finishing. And so I just felt in my spirit, when I went to college, I started off as pre-med. So I wanted to be a doctor, but ironically, the labs, biology was fine. Then when I got to organic chemistry, the lab time conflicted with our basketball practice time. And I remember, I think my SAT score was about 1,000. So I didn't do too well on it, but I was able to get in the University of Pennsylvania. I played as a true freshman. And so I started my sophomore year, and I remember walking to practice. If any of you have been to the University of Pennsylvania, there's a famous walk called Locust Walk. I'm walking on Locust Walk. Well, a couple of my classmates in my chemistry class who had perfect scores on their SAT, they were walking the other way. And they said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to practice. I said, where are you going? They said, we're going to lab to get some extra work in. And I said, this is probably not going to work. And so I made the change to business, but I just felt it was imperative in our family that we needed to have lawyers because you can't do anything in life without lawyers. And so I just took it upon myself and to basically break through the barrier. And I felt that if I was able to get into a world-class law school, such as Notre Dame, and to be able to graduate and achieve and succeed, then it would open up the door. And it's amazing how once people have an opportunity to see something, it becomes easier to do it. And so I was a first lawyer, graduated in 1990. Then all of a sudden my nephew comes along. My oldest brother's 20 years older than me, so that's why he's my nephew, and we're the same age basically. He graduates in 91. And then his son graduated from law school. And then those two little kids that I came here to help raise, they're both lawyers now. And then Peri here, so I just felt having a chance to go to law school, now we have 6 lawyers in our family. And so I'm often reminded of one of the greatest stories, and there's a video clip, you all should show it in one of your, maybe I'll show it when I come to sports law class, but Sir Roger Bannister, if you all have heard of him, he was an incredible doctor. But what he's known for is he broke the 4-minute mile. So on May 6th of 1954, in a suburb of London, he was in medical school. He had been a runner, but during medical school, he could only run for like 10 minutes a day. But he ended up breaking the 4-minute mile. And what's crazy about this story, it had never been done. People said it was humanly impossible to do it. So he's in medical school, couldn't really run a lot. The morning that he ran and broke the 4-minute mile, he was over in the medical school using a device to kind of sharpen his spikes. And even that day when he went to run, the weather was bad. It was rainy and windy. And a lot of people told him, don't try today because you won't make it. And so I'm here to tell you, a lot of people tell you that you can't make it, but he went on. But the race and the story gets even better. There were two other, Chris Chatham and Chris Brashear, who were runners. They agreed to run with him. And so one of them ran the first lap and another one ran the next two laps, and then he finished it off. So there's so many symbolic stories. You know, one, people will tell you not to do it. Two, the weather's never perfect. Three, you got to have people who can run with you. But what's the most unbelievable thing about this story, no one had ever broke the 4-minute mile. Medical doctors said it was physically impossible to do. When he broke the 4-minute mile on May 6th of 1954, 46 days later, the next person broke it. Within the next 10 years, 336 people broke it. Now, as of 2022, 1,755 people have broken it. And so that's how I kind of looked at law school. One, we needed lawyers in our family to make sure we could protect what we were going to build. And two, I thought if we could do it, then we would get a run on lawyers. And I think we have enough in our family now. So hopefully someone coming along can go be a doctor. We can start doing,
Chef.
doing that. But you can't make it in life without lawyers.
Yeah. You talk just now a lot about breaking barriers. And I think a lot of us in this position are the first in our family in some regard, whether that's first generation, undergrad student or law student. Talk a little bit about the mental as well as, mental health, how you keep your mental health strong during all this. It's a lot being the first.
Yeah, it was, my theory is always, focus on being the first, the best, and only. And it's not easy. I will tell you that it was not easy. There were challenging days, but I think that's that resilience that we all have it in us. And it really is circumstances that are challenging. That's why I just encourage you, if you're in school, just stay in the grind. I mean, it's really in the grind is really where you grow. It's during those tough times. So I embraced it because it just pushed me. I was pushed. The furthest that I've been pushed academically was here in law school. And that's why even now in my position, I'm still licensed in 4 states. People are like, why don't you lecture? I'm like, as hard as it took for me to get through law school, I'm going to do my CLE, I'm going to do my license. And then, a lot of people don't understand, though, the amount of failure that you have to endure to get to the top of a mountain. And I didn't pass the bar the first time because I got out of school. People knew I had a, incredible work ethic. So my firm, like I said, I graduated Saturday, moved on Sunday, started work on Monday, and they had cases on my desk on Monday. And I was like, hey, I got bar review. And they were like, man, you went to Notre Dame, you got 3 degrees, you're fine. Kansas bar is easy. I'm like, yeah, it might be, but I'm one of those ones, I got to put in the work. And I remember how the good Lord works, which is crazy. I was doing depositions, billing crazy amount of hours, 3,000, 4,000 hours. And I am sitting in a hotel room. That's a true story. Sitting in a hotel room, I don't know if I've ever told Peri this, on Lakeshore Drive. And I called my office, my one of the people who answered the phone, I said, hey, that's when, they sent mail, they sent a letter to your office. I said, I probably got my bar letter, and I was doing deposition. She said, no, it didn't come in. I called the next day, and she said, it came in. I said, can you open it up? And she goes, Kevin, you didn't pass. And she was kind of jokester. And I said, Judy, don't play around here. She goes, you didn't pass. And I was like, wow. And what's crazy about this, we moved to Chicago in 2019. I take over as commissioner of the Big Ten. The apartment building we live in overlooks the W Hotel. Okay, we're right on Lakeshore Drive. So one day I said, I need to find the hotel that I was in, and because it was a Holiday Inn. And so I Googled Holiday Inn on Lakeshore Drive. It was the W. And so when you start talking about full circle, I found out some of the worst news in my life. And I was able to look out of my window onto that hotel, which is the W Hotel, which used to be the Holiday Inn. And the good Lord took me a long way away to come back around, especially now to be the commissioner of the Big Ten and now, working at the Chicago Bears. And so I'm constantly reminded, every time I see that hotel, I'm reminded that even though you have disappointments, that you are on a journey. But, Peri, as you talk about, I mean, the struggle is real. I mean, to this day, not to scare you all, but my workload has only increased, over time. I think some people look at the results and, yeah, we get a chance. We have a wonderful, incredible life, but it is an absolute, for me, in my position, what I have to do to be able to set a legacy. And I'm carrying all on my back every single day that I have to grind harder every year to kind of stay ahead.
Yeah, you said a word that I didn't know was in your repertoire, was deposition.
Yeah.
Did you start?
Yeah.
Did you start off as a litigator? Just talk a little bit about your journey. Know you had your sports agency, and that feels like very lawyerly. Now you do a lot more business.
Yeah.
So just give a purview of your kind of professional journey.
Yeah, so after I graduated from Notre Dame, I accepted a job with a firm in Phoenix. It's now Greenberg Traurig. At the time, it was O'Connor Kavanaugh. It merged with Greenberg. But then I got a call from a lawyer in Phoenix of a firm that I interviewed with, but I didn't accept a job. And that's why I would make sure you always gracefully handle your business. Because I never thought a firm that I didn't accept a job, the lawyer called me and said, hey, I got a friend in Chicago, a guy by the name of Mike Slide that you should meet. You were impressive in your interview. You talked about sports. So he's the one connecting me to Mike Slide. So here at Notre Dame, I had this little, Mo would laugh, this little Toyota Corolla that had about 125,000 miles on it. Thank God I didn't get hit by a bike on it, because if a bike had run into it, it would have flipped it. But I drove up to Chicago, had breakfast with him, and I came back. This is my third year. I'd already accepted my job. And then he offered me a job to move to Kansas City. And that one phone call that I accepted changed my life, because I got a chance to meet my incredible wife, Greta. If I don't take that call and take that job, she's not here, she's not here. Just show you how your life changes. But when I moved to Kansas City, the firm was the most prolific sports firm. They represented colleges and universities who violated NCAA rules. So that's when I did depositions. But it was a challenge, because at that time under NCAA rules, you had no subpoena power. So you can imagine going to depose someone, interview, depose, whatever you want to call it, with no subpoena powers, and to convince them to be able to talk to you, to tell you that the things that the school did wrong, violations that they did where their son or daughter was actually playing at the time. So I had to develop a skill that in literally 15 seconds, if someone would crack their door, that I was able to make an opening statement where they would let me in, and then to be able to share their story with me. So that's how I started. I did that first year. It was the best training ever. Part of the reason why I didn't pass the bar, because they would send me to New York and say, okay, you're working on the Syracuse basketball case, go into Queensbridge housing projects, and there are 30 people that you have to interview. Then I would go from there to Minnesota, to California. I was all across the country, because I was the entry-level person who was doing all these interviews. For the people who are my age, a little bit younger, older, you remember those dictaphone tapes? Yeah, so I would take those with me. My admin then, who they assigned me to, was a black woman, Mae Davis. There were only two black people in the firm. It was Mae and me, and I guess they thought we could only talk to each other. So they gave me her. She's still with me now, 35 years later. But most people who would go do these interviews would do about 10 tapes a week. And, they would tease me because I was able to do 50. I could do so many interviews, but I would go to the hallway and get plastic bags with ice, not put ice in it, but I would put all of my dictaphone tapes. And so I would come back in. So it was a perfect marriage, because Mae was a single mom and at night was working at Pizza Hut to make extra money. But then when she met me, it was a godsend, because her overtime was time and a half. And I remember coming in, she would smile at me, and I would drop those plastic bag with all those dictaphone tapes, and then she would be able to type. And by the time she finished the reports, I was back on the road again.
Wow. Before we pivot to some more legacy conversation, law school, it's always funny, and law in general is a field of practice. So I'm curious, even though you're not a conventional lawyer to this day, what are you still practicing? What are you sharpening?
It's funny you say that. My day started this morning at 4:30. I had a person who works me out, at 5:15. I went about an hour, went back home to the apartment, showered, and then my first meeting was with a prominent politician in Chicago at 7:30. So every one of my meetings has law implications. So that went for an hour and a half. And then, funny you say that, at 9 o'clock, two lawyers from a law firm came to see me about the stadium. And these are people that practice law. So it's two of them and one of me. But that was about an hour. And then it rolled right into a sponsorship, corporate sponsorship meeting. And that had all kind of legal implications about deals, that we're working on with our staff. And then I was able to roll that into a coaching call. And then the next call, I had a call, one of the committees I serve on at the NFL, with Commissioner Goodell and others and other owners. We had that call, but it had some legal implications because we're talking about, various things that are going on in the NFL. And then my last call before we got in the car and drove down was with individuals from Proskauer Law Firm about certain ownership and of teams in the NFL. So ironically, today was a really heavy legal call. So even though, and that's why I told Peri this, and I tell individuals, if you have any inkling that you might want to be a lawyer, go get your law degree, because it just, one, it helps you to learn how to really think in the process, a lot of information. But I'll say it all the time, I couldn't have gone from that job to a sports agent to being an NFL executive and Big Ten commissioner. Now where I am, I wouldn't be able to do my job and my career at the level if I didn't have a law degree. And it's amazing how it started, because I was, after MBA school, that's when in the 90s, investment banking was big. And I had some opportunities. I love the stock market, I love finance, I love investing. And I remember talking with my parents, who were both teachers. My dad was a college professor, my mom was a librarian, and they both said, you're going to have how they knew then, you're going to have a great career, and you don't want to be in a room where you have to rely on someone deciphering critical legal information. And that really stuck with me. And so, which is interesting, because now I'm in meetings, and although we have executive vice president of legal affairs, a chief legal officer, and we hire a lot of lawyers, but today I even thought, I said, boy, if I didn't have a law degree, especially one from Notre Dame, to be sitting here having to make the decisions that I make without the understanding of the law, it would be, I don't say impossible, it would be very difficult. So I'm grateful to have that education.
Yeah. In this modern era where diversity, inclusion, equity conversations are hot button, and you as a Black attorney and Black professional, what is your kind of words to us as people who are entering the legal field? I think we're still around only 5% of total lawyers are Black. So you kind of just referenced it about how you want to be in the position to know, but if you could just speak a little bit on identity and race.
Yeah, there's so much left to go from a race standpoint. I mean, you think about the number of Black, partners. While Morrison is really unique, he's a partner chaplain of color. They just don't exist, and so we are. I strongly believe, and it takes about 3 generations, as I always say it. Probably my children get tired of me saying it, where you can afford to have kind of financial and career buffoonery, where you can, have people in your family who need to go find themselves. But it takes a lot to get there. We're not there yet. And so I look at, we're generation 1, Peri's generation 2. So when you start thinking about like her kids, I mean, you're talking about 4 generations where we would probably have the flexibility where you could have people to say, yeah, I want to kind of travel the world and to be able to do it. So I just encourage you all. We're still on the front end, because it's just there's a dearth of lawyers of color. There's a dearth of women lawyers. There's so much we can do. I know it's not fun. Now, Morrison was one of the ones who's been there for 30 plus years at big firms, but we need some women. We need people of color to kind of grind out some of these bigger firms. I mean, if I only did what I wanted to do that made me happy, I probably would do about 10% of my day. So probably 90% of my day is for future generations. I mean, it's for Peri, her brother, and it's for all of you all there. So I just would challenge even some of these young lawyers, stay the course and get trained work through it and all those different things. So when it comes to kind of race and diversity, I've been one that has never paid attention, and I don't mean that negatively. I just have always strived to, just to be the very best and push myself beyond probably a comfort level and recognize just, life is about legacy, and someone has to do it. Back to like Roger Bannister. I know we're in a challenging time in our world, but I would tell you the best way that you can prove that diversity and inclusion and equity is important is be at the top, be the best. Because that's the best way. I could go speak every night to somewhere and talk about the importance of a diverse workforce, or I can do it. So when I hire like my senior leadership team and they're majority women, that says what I feel. When I have that, because a lot of times Black people won't hire Black people. And I don't know why we do that to each other, but when I hire people of color, we have a diverse workforce. And the reason why it's important is because when I'm making decisions now at the Chicago Bears, I need to make sure that the people around the table with me can bring information about every single person that we need to touch. So I need men and women there who have young children, because now my children are not young. And so I need to make sure that someone comes up with an idea to say, hey, what happens if an infant comes to the game? Do we need to have breastfeeding pods with Mama Va? Do we, all of these different deals. Okay, and then we need to make sure we accommodate seniors. Well, we have people who can't park. What about people who have disability? So the only way you get that is you got to get a diverse group. So I've never understood when someone questions diversity. It's not only color, but just thought. I need different religious backgrounds and ages and ethnicities and all those different things. And I think that's what has helped my career so much, is I've surrounded myself with really diverse schools of thought. And I think that's just important. But the best way to be in a position to really promote diversity is to be outstanding at your craft. So when people look at it and say, boy, that young woman or that young man, they can get that project done.
Yeah, I guess one final question before we open the floor and make this more of a group conversation. You talked about legacy. What does legacy in one word? What's your synonym to legacy?
I would say synonym to legacy would, that's a great question. Would be infinity. I think a real legacy lasts forever. That just as it goes, on. I mean, you look at some of the, biblical characters. I mean, even now today, obviously we still talk about Jesus, but now, we're talking about Moses, and, we're talking about Ruth. I mean, we talk about Jonah, and so I just think when you have a real legacy, that it lasts forever. I mean, here, Father Hesberg and Father Joyce and Dean Link and, Lou Holtz and Eric Parzigue, and as long as this world is long, those people are going to be there. And so that's what I'm trying to make sure every day. I just don't want to be someone it's a legacy for a century. My target every day is 500-600 years, 800 years from now, that they can kind of still, and it's not talking about me for me, because I want to have for pride or anything, but just more so that I got every ounce of talent out of my body that the, good Lord blessed me with.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Let's open it. Thank you.
I think Peri, now I think she can go from law school to kind of the entertainment and be on TV and be.
It always, we're moving the goalposts.
Yes, right. I got you. That keeps you can't be comfortable. It keeps you on your toes. So
Right.
we need a Black Barbara Walters. So it'll be good.
Well, thank you. Okay, let's open it up. I can bring the mic around. We can just talk freely if anyone has any questions
I
or
can hear.
further insights.
Yes.
The idea that you don't have the privilege of applying yourself. How did you come to terms with that? That's tradition, like what we're
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic question. And I would just, I look at my journey as almost like, that's why you hear me use the word flight plan a lot.
Mhm.
You know, I go pick it up. And sometimes there's some flights that I have to take that they're not enjoyable. The thing that helped me the most, back to kind of the pain and the drama, is at 10 and a half, I was run over by a car. So I had a horrific accident and had to be in traction, and I was in a body cast, literally flat on my back for a while. And so I just think that redefined, you know, my life, because you hear it all the time. Buddy Stevens, the coach of Dartmouth, he got hit, he died. I mean, you know, people get hit by cars and die. And I think for me to land on a little plot of grass to be lived, I knew that's when I knew about God before I'd heard about it. And we went to church, and, you know, I said my prayers to the best I knew. But that's the first time I felt God in my life, like protecting me and to give me a second act. So because of that, and I say this lovingly, I don't encourage people to try to follow, you know, what I've done. I don't, because my flight plan was just different. And so what I'm trying to do is just to leverage to be able to help as many people as I can. It's kind of funny. Sometimes parents will call me and go, my son or daughter, they really want to get into sports. You know, can they come, you know, work with you? I say, great. Yeah. Send them up. You know, Peri knows and Greta. I mean, we've had all kind of people stay at the house, and it's like day 2, after day 2 on the job, like I'm trying to wake them up in the morning, and they're like falling out. I mean, they can't even keep their head up. And I just think because of it, it's, you know, I do what I do. I'm at that point in life right now where it's about everyone else. Like, I'm trying to, you know, help the family. I'm trying to help people here. I'm trying to change the world. I'm trying to change how people think. I'm trying to help as many charities as I can. Like, I'm just trying to, because, you know, when you get older, you realize that sand dial, there's only so much sand, you know, in your dial. And I don't want to, you know, when whatever day is my final day on earth, I don't want to have any regrets. I want to just thank the Lord, because, you know, the best way you can thank God is with your effort, not your results, but with your effort. And I just want God to say, I appreciate, you know, your effort. And so I would just tell people, I want to be in a position that allows younger generations to be able to kind of find themselves. And it's okay. Because sometimes you gotta go through some error to get to Calvary. You gotta find yourself to be in a position to really do, you know, something special. I just didn't have. I wasn't afforded the flexibility to do that. I'm not saying it's the best thing for your health, because it's probably not. But I'd go with the flow, you know, depending on where you are. Yes, sir.
Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I got real, because when you go through hell, you get real close, you know, to God. I went through hell during my accident. Yeah. No, I'm just saying, I'm talking about my accident. So my eyes were open to a different level of being. And like I said, I'd gone to church, I said prayer, I do hymns, but I hadn't really, like, you can pray and you can pray. Like, I learned how to really, you know, pray for them. And there were so many, angels that came along in my life that touched me, like Dwight, Mary, you know, and the Link family. And so you recognize that, because you sit there and say, like why? So it was interesting. So I come to Notre Dame, and I think sometimes people still think that I'm Catholic, and I probably am, but I came to Notre Dame. My grandmother was Catholic. My mom grew up Catholic, but we grew up Presbyterian. We kind of had a mixture of it. But when I came here, I went to Mass every week, a couple times a day. I don't know if they still do it now, because now with the world we live in, do they still have Mass here in the law school? I mean, I went I remember downstairs in the old law school. I went to, people who've been here, you know what I'm talking about. But Mo and I, we went to Mass, you know, all the time. And so I got a chance to really, you know, understand and feel it. That's the thing, one of the many things I love about Notre Dame. I asked my wife Greta to marry me at the grotto. This is just a special, really, place. You can feel it. When we came, you know, I'm always so tired, so Greta will drive. I don't drive anymore because we had death threats when I postponed the season at the Big Ten, so I stopped driving. And now I drive like one day a week to church. But when I get in the car, I can stay up about 10 minutes, but I'm asleep, knocked out. But when I came around, And to see the Golden Dome, I sit up straight. So I think the biggest thing in the faith journey is that we just need to be aware. And I'm really open now about learning about just different, religions and just to learn about. I've moved more so from what road you're on from a religious standpoint to focusing on God and what that means to different people. So faith has always been important to me. Truly have not been anywhere even near the realm of perfection, but I'm still trying every single day just to get a little bit. I mean, I want to, centimeters matter. And I just want to get it like a centimeter. Like hopefully today I got a centimeter closer to understand, the universe. Because there's so many amazing things. Like I watched the sunrise this morning. I love sunrises and sunset. But I watched the sunrise this morning. When you think of, I saw a rainbow 2 days ago. We had a crazy storm. I was giving a speech out in a little village in Pilsen, and I was in this YMCA place. I said, man, this roof is gone. Come in. And then when I went out, saw a rainbow. There's just so many mysteries of the universe that is really special. And now I'm trying to slow down a little bit more to be quick but not fast, but to really just embrace those and what's the meaning of it.
If you have time for one more.
We got to cut it off.
Okay.
Our question. I mean, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
You got me on.
I did my best.
I usually, this is a free, so you might as well take advantage of it. You don't want me sending you the bill what this normally costs, so.
Okay.
No. Very good.
Yeah, thanks, Paris. I think to answer your question, what you just said, like I was always kind of defiantly so. He had to like force me to go to law school, but it worked out to create my own legacy. So I really, sports, entertainment, that's what I grew up with. So it's always so interesting. And I understand it when people want to get into sports, but I feel like that was, kind of my cradle. I grew up in sports and entertainment. So I think a lot of my own journey has been trying to carve my own path. And instead of, I think part of my maturity too has been not trying to do opposite or, find my own way, but to take what he has done and maximize it. So thank you for everything you have done and add my own flair to what my father has laid out before me in my own flavor. So you can hear it in his voice. I mean, it's life lessons all the time. And I think with me, it's really not just on me, but it's in me. So carrying that forward, but also finding my own path through it.
And I think for me, that's a great question. I've learned over time that you can influence and inspire people, even if you don't meet them. And so that's why I'm very, very conscientious of my environment. One of the things that drove me to be a lawyer, I had a friend who went to Princeton, and her brother was a Supreme Court clerk for Thurgood. I mean, he was at the Supreme Court. But one day that he said, Kevin, it seems like you have an interest in law. I was a freshman in college, had just turned 18 years old. And he said, you should come up to the Supreme Court. Now you can imagine this is for 9/11 Social Security. So I remember going up there and he gave me a tour of the Supreme Court and I got a chance to look in Judge Marshall's office. I never met him, never saw him, but I remember looking at his office and it was like something, even though I was a pre-med major then, came over me like, wow, this is the direction I'm going. And so that's why I'm very conscientious, and May knows it, like I said, who's been with me 35 years. I always wonder the number of people who look in my office. Like there are people, today, when I'm not there, if somebody says, can I look at Kevin's office? And I'm amazed at some of the letters that I get back from people that I've never even met, and that's why I'm so grateful, and emotional and kind for all our fans. Like, so you can never offend me. I don't care if I'm in the middle of eating dinner or on an airplane or whatever, because you never know just what that little. It was funny. One of my chief of staffs came to me, and his son said to him, "I have a Peloton bike in my office." He's like, "Dad, like, when are you going to get like a promoted so you can get a bike in your office?" But you never know what are those little things that cause someone, to do it. And I just never, the stack of mail, letters, calls, text messages that I get, or hearing from other people, "Hey, I got a chance to meet Kevin," or someone who knew Kevin, who are in influence, is really critically, important. So I'm just very cognizant, because the worst thing someone can do, I don't take myself too seriously. I feel like my career is just starting. I haven't accomplished anything. But the worst thing that a person can do, and this all probably has happened to us, is when someone who you really admire and look up to, that you have a chance to meet them and they're a jackass.
Right.
It really taints you.
Yep.
And I just am, that's something I don't want anyone, I want even people to say that, wow, I stopped this guy in the airport. I could tell he was hustling for a flight, or he was in the middle of dinner with his family, and we asked him to take a picture. I want them to say that that I was a gracious, person to be able to do it. Because again, kind of like I said about our way that we thank God is with our effort. The way that we thank people who are around in our surroundings is to be gratitude, to have a heart of gratitude. And you never know. We're always just one little decision away from greatness, and you never know what that will be. And I want to be that person, even if I never see him again, that someone is telling a group, "Hey, I met this guy," even if they don't know who my name is. And, he had a Notre Dame hat on, and I asked him about him, and he sat there and talked to me about the grotto and the Golden Dome and all these kind of experiences. Now my son went to I'm a big believer that decisions, like the power of one, is critically important. Yes, ma'am.
Tori.
What kind of steps you do when you don't want to make the possible and pull people up below you to get there? How did you mentally get these so that you
I think one of the things, words matter. I never use that word of failure. Never. I don't. I just look at it as just an incredible, like, opportunity. I actually call it opportunity, to learn, because that's when you really get a chance to learn and lock in. Because I don't think, I truly believe there's no such thing as a mistake, because you learn. And now the biggest thing that we have to remember, and there's some people have difficulty, you got to recognize you can't make all the mistakes, in your life. You can't have all the learning experiences. So you got to learn through other people. And that's what I've tried to be able to do, is to learn. And if you look and say, I'm wide open with you all. Like, I got a brother, she has an uncle, he has an uncle right now who's on crack cocaine in Arizona. And so I sit there and go, okay, we grew up in the same household. What makes you wake up one day and go, you know what? Kind of bored. I'm gonna try to crack. So I was able to, like, watch people, even in my family, my neighbors, people I work with, and say, like, if you put milk in a gas tank in a car, like, your car probably won't. I'm not going to try that. So I would one thing, be conscious of not the word failure. Huge learning experience. So me not passing a bar, that taught me a lesson, because I got here, I did well in school. I wasn't an A student, but I learned how to study, and I knew it. And I knew in my heart of hearts, that's the other thing. Don't ever ignore your I don't even call it your gut instinct. God is talking to all of us. And don't ignore that. We just went through, even in work, and people who work with me know I'm crazy, so they go along with it. But I have our Department of Analytics who did a study, like, before we raised ticket prices. I have them come. They did this phenomenal study on churn rates and everything, very detailed. Now, I took the time to read the report, But at the end of the day, when I just said we're going to raise ticket prices 10%, it was kind of what kind of was in my, spirit, because I knew we were have a new head coach, we would have, free agents, we would make trades, all those different kind of things. And if you look, I just checked it before I came. I get updated 507, 107, and 707 at night. And we're 44% year over year up from last year. And there were many people in the organization who thought we should have raised it zero. And it's not even about the money. It's just, sometimes I will make decisions that are not good decisions, but they're God decisions, just to check to make sure that my spiritual barometer is still like dialed in. And then this is one. And then when something happens and it works out, I'm like, okay, I just got to stay in tune. So I would just tell you, don't consider it failure, consider a great learning experience, and then share it, because to have a testimony. Well, what's the root of the word testimony? You got to have a test. So otherwise, you got a money. I don't want a money. So I've had a lot of tests, and even like expansion in the Big Ten, our television deal in the Big Ten. There were people thought we were out of our mind to be able to do it, and we went from a Power 5 conference. Now there's only 4. Pac-12 is gone. So I say that to say, just look at it as you're learning. It's a blessing. Yes, sir.
So read through your resume, your history. I might be reading.
I don't have any more resumes. I haven't. Yeah, I know.
First, taking on the defensive line here and starting your own agency.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one being the jump to go and represent the Vikings ownership group.
Yeah.
In that position. I'm just wondering, can you tell a little about the story behind how you felt, the confidence that you had, to go and make those major moves that seemed quite risky to me, and where that confidence came from, and then what that process was like, because it seems a little bit like those were these scary moments for my.
Yeah, I think I have a saying. I actually have trademarked it called the dream chuckle, and I sense that, I know when I'm really in a good spot is when I share some of my dreams or ideals, and I've had a lot of them, where it causes people to chuckle a little bit. And I think all of us have noticed that, you've told your family some ideas and people chuckle, and they'll be nice, be like, okay, hey, we're all for you, whatever. They really don't believe it. But I like living in that space as much as I possibly can, because you know what it is, because then that's the space that I have to be dependent upon God. And when you truly are dependent upon God, especially when you've had some modicum of success, magical things, happen. Even like our, stadium in Chicago. I mean, the easy road would have been for me to go there. I mean, forget the stadium. We just did the largest television deal of the Big Ten Conference. We just expanded. I didn't even get a chance to enjoy personally that experience. So I could have probably laid down for 7 years to be able to do it. But kind of the way I'm trained, I love, and we call it around the Bears now, surprise and delights. So I think a true leader always leaves early. And the worst thing I've seen when athletes, when it breaks my heart, and we've all seen it, whether without naming people, whether you're a boxer, whether you're a basketball player, football player, when you look and know someone is talented and you say, you know what, they stayed too long. But the true leaders, that's why I admire Jim Brown so much, is when you leave at the top of the game. We had the Vikings humming, new stadium, really good team. We were iconic in Minnesota. Then I left and went to the Big Ten. And in 44 months to be able to do expansion, we went through hell and back to get the TV deal. Before it even kicked in, I was ready to go to the Bears. And even coming here, it could have been easy for us to say, I'm not even going to talk about a new stadium. I'm kind of just ride this. But I think what it is, and you have a great question, is I try to pick ideas and opportunities that pull me to a point where I have to be totally dependent and submissive to God. And when I do that, I mean, that's when the magic really happens. It's getting ready to happen here in Chicago. And you remember that I said it. You can tell the way our team's coming together, this whole stadium. I love climbing flat walls. I love it. I mean, and once I climb it and figure it out, then I want to hand it off to someone to be able to enjoy it. That's just kind of how I am. But the challenge is, and it's not the challenge to say we did it, it's the challenge to say, that are dependent on God, and look what, look what we were able to accomplish. So I think that's what it is. I like being very uncomfortable, because then that's what keeps me up. Because people will say, well, how do you, I don't use an alarm clock. I'll set it to make sure that I don't, but I don't need one, because there's, I got to be in that, zone. And that's when I really enjoy it. That's how I hand over here. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I spend a lot of time thinking and praying about, you know, have I done all that I possibly can do to be like, father of the year or husband of the year? Like, that's my target. Because if I do that, the work kind of becomes, easy. And so when you're, raising a kid, one, there is, it's crazy. You have a kid, you go to the hospital, you're there for like a day. They give you a blanket, a little Similac, and then say, God bless you, and you go. And there is no like training or rule. But I remember even, we picked up Peri, from the hospital. Like, I was so nervous of like driving and all of those different things. There's no rule book, so I've had to have grace on it. Like, being a parent is, I'm trying to do the best I possibly can. So there's a certain, I know for me, that I want, my kids to be safe and secure, but I want them to struggle in, certain areas. But it is very, and I talked to Peri, I talked to Powers about it a lot, my nieces and nephews. Your family life at home dictates your future and the success in your career. And I think one of the things, and I'm so grateful for Greta. And when I tell people that I couldn't have done this without her, and that's some people say it, but I'm being totally honest, because when I get up in the morning, I literally have no distractions. And I work with people who live in a distracted environment. And so they can't compete with me, because they got a lot of drama. And so that's why you got to marry right. I mean, I say that honestly. You got to make really wise decisions, because all that dictates, because this life is not easy. And I'll say that. But I mean, I work with people, and you can always tell when you see people walking outside on the cell phone, it's not a good call. What are you doing? I mean, you know what I mean? But you can't, if I had to spend 2 hours a day and I'm arguing with my wife and I got bad kids and a bunch of, I couldn't do that. I could, there's too much on me.
That's hilarious.
And so family is so critically, important. And the key of it is having a really, because if you got a strong family, you got a strong self, you have a strong career, and it's all laced in the Bible. It's not what Greta and I, we're good. Peri and Powers are good. But like, my focus right now is on their great grandkids. I think about that every day. And even if I'm nothing more, because we got some little bad kids running around, who's that dude right there, looking at my picture or whatever. I want them to grow up to understand like kind of what it took, how hard it was to get to the point, not out of a guilt standpoint, but just that kind of opportunity. And for them to look at us and say, there's like, Peri could be president of the United States. That's how I look at it. I'm not saying she wants to be, but seriously. No, I mean, honest, so many times, and I think that's one of the things you all have to recognize. There is literally not anything, you are able to do everything. We may be sitting in here with someone who's going to buy an NFL team, one day, or, and that's why I love stories. Apple Computer, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak. But there was a third guy that no one talks about, Ronald Wayne. He was the older one of the group. He wrote the handbook. He came up with the design. And about 2 months after Apple got started, Jobs and Wozniak came to Ronald Wayne and said, hey, we're going to borrow this like 50 grand line of credit. We need you to sign on it. He's like, hey, man, you guys got to slow down. He sold 10% of Apple for $2,300. His first check was $1,500, then $800 because he was scared. And so I think the other thing that I would say that I've been really blessed with, like I'm fearless. I'm just fearless. I'm gonna figure it out. And so I just think back to family is so critically important. That the only way you can do that is you got to have a really family structure. And sometimes you got to build it on your own. But family is critical. Legacy, all that is critical. You know. One last one, you got to hit me. Somebody got to zing me with something. I'll take one final one. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that doesn't count. No. You know what? It's special, but it also, no, it's special. I'm gonna hold that. It's really special. But it's so natural too. I mean, we have these conversations all the time. And I think when I started moving from a place of don't mess this up, whatever this is, whatever I'm carrying, to, you know what, have fun and make him proud, my journey started to shift. So I think it's special, but it's also just an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm doing this my own way. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And for the position to be in, like, this is not lost on me. As I talked about, 5% of lawyers are Black. Notre Dame is even less and going down. So this is a very special and cherished moment, but the job's not finished. So I'm excited for what's to come.
Yeah, this is my favorite interview. I wish somebody videotaped it.
It is being recorded.
Okay, cool. But what's interesting about this? No, I am. Is I'll tell you this. What's awesome about this is that there are a lot of people, because this is the life that they've known. So there are a lot of people when they were growing up who they just, got a chance to meet around the dinner table. And what's interesting now that Peri and Powers are getting older, they're like, oh, I didn't know that fill in the blank, whoever that is. And so it's interesting that they've been able to kind of grow up in an environment and just to meet people that they got a chance to meet. And that's how I want them. I don't want them to be like, I'm going to see my dad and I have an appointment and I need to put on, a black dress, and then there's smoke that comes around and I'm sitting in a study, with an ascot on. I mean, I want it to be some of our greatest conversations. They're sitting in the hot tub or laying on the couch or whatever the case may be. And now they're of the age, one of my just moments is just, awesome is when you can travel. Like they were able to go to London with us when we played this year, and to be able to travel with your, kids, the experience, because I've had such a charmed life. A lot of time I'm by myself or Greta's with me and I will be like, damn, I wish my parents could go, or wish, we take her mom, with us. But I think for me, what it's meant is now it's to be back on campus. When I walked in on here, you think in 1987 with just a bunch of dreams, and desires, and to see that kind of come, together. But what's crazy, and I'll close with about this, like this doesn't surprise me because I visualize this.
Yeah,
I used to walk
that's what I
through
was gonna say. I think that's why it feels almost like it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. It's reassuring.
Yeah. So I appreciate you all so much, and God bless you, and bear down.
Bear down.